Documented engineering records show 2.2 Magnum was designed from the outset for a longer, harder-hitting trajectory than 2.2 long rifle. The cartridge it often gets lumped in with. This countdown breaks down the bolt lockup systems, bedding designs, and cycling mechanisms manufacturers rarely explain in marketing copy. The number one rifle on this list borrows a design philosophy usually reserved for world-class rimfire competition guns. Let's get into it. Number 5 on this list, the Henry Frontier H1. This lever action carries 19th century mechanical roots into a modern precision rimfire market, and that heritage comes with a real trade-off. Henry Repeating Arms builds the Frontier around a tube magazine and an exposed hammer, a layout borrowed directly from lever guns of the 1800s. The rifle uses American walnut furniture and a blued steel receiver, a combination collectors and hunters both recognize as a callback to Frontier-era firearms rather than a modern tactical build. Sporting heritage drives this design far more than competition shooting does. Here is what most people miss about this gun. A tube-fed lever action cannot lock its bolt with the same rigidity as a true bolt gun, and that flex under fire is the direct reason its accuracy caps out where it does. Engineers accept that trade-off because the tube magazine allows a shooter to top off rounds one at a time without removing a detachable box, a feature hunters value more than bench rest precision. The Frontier chambers 2.2 Winchester Magnum rimfire, runs a 20-inch octagon barrel, and holds 12 rounds in its tube. This weapon weighs 6.5 pounds, noticeably heavier than the Ruger American rimfire target, despite carrying a shorter barrel. Iron-sighted accuracy lands near 2 MOA, a full half MOA behind the Ruger, covered later in this list. That 2 MOA ceiling matters less than it sounds. A hunter working inside 50 yards on small game will never notice the difference, but a shooter chasing sub-inch groups at 100 yards will feel it immediately. Henry designed the Frontier as a sporting and small game rifle rooted in 19th century mechanical tradition, not as a precision instrument. The next rifle on this list keeps a similar price point, but swaps that exposed hammer for a bedding system borrowed straight from bench rest competition. Number 4 on this list, the Ruger American Rimfire Target. This rifle hides a bedding innovation under its stock that most casual shooters never think to ask about. Ruger introduced the American Rimfire platform in 2020 as a budget precision option, and the Target variant pairs that platform with a heavier bull barrel. The rifle sits in a laminate stock, a material choice manufacturers favor for its resistance to warping compared to standard hardwood. Ruger built this rifle for varmint hunters and target shooters who wanted precision without a custom price tag. Here is what most people miss about this gun. Ruger's power bedding system locks the barreled action into the stock at specific contact points, rather than relying on friction alone. And that fixed relationship between barrel and stock is what reduces the harmonic flex responsible for opening up group sizes in thinner, sporter barrels. This detail explains why a mass-produced rifle in this price range can compete with far more expensive bolt guns on paper. This rifle chambers 2.2 Winchester Magnum rimfire through an 18-inch bull barrel and holds 9 rounds in a rotary magazine. The American Rimfire Target weighs 6.7 pounds, nearly 2 full pounds heavier than the Browning T-Bolt Sporter covered later in this list. 3 shot groups at 100 yards with 30-grain ammunition have measured close to 1.5 inches, a result that lands this rifle solidly in 1.5 MOA territory. That extra weight creates a real trade-off. A shooter carrying this rifle long distances across open terrain will feel the added pounds, but that same weight helps steady the rifle during a longer shot string at the bench. Ruger designed this rifle to bridge the gap between affordable hunting rifles and dedicated precision platforms. The next entry on this list abandons the bolt handle altogether in favor of a mechanism built to feed itself. Number 3 on this list, the Savage A22 Magnum. Building a semi-automatic rifle that safely handles 22 Magnum's pressure without a locked breech is a harder engineering problem than most shooters realize. Savage Arms released the A22 Magnum in 2016 as the Magnum chambered sibling to their A17 platform. The rifle uses a polymer stock over a metal receiver, a construction choice that keeps overall weight down compared to the wood-stocked rifles on this list. Savage built this platform specifically to solve the reliability problems that plague straight blowback designs in higher-pressure rimfire cartridges. Here is what most people miss about this gun. The A22 runs a delayed blowback system built around a rotating bolt head, and that rotation resists the bolt opening for a fraction of a second longer than a simple straight blowback action would allow. This delay is the specific engineering detail that lets a semi-automatic rifle safely cycle a cartridge, generating significantly more pressure than standard 2.2 long rifle, without requiring a fully locked rotating bolt like a bolt-action rifle uses. This rifle chambers 2.2 Winchester Magnum rimfire through a 22-inch barrel and holds 10 rounds in a detachable rotary magazine. The Savage A22 Magnum weighs 5.6 pounds, a full pound lighter than the Ruger American Rimfire target covered earlier in this list. 5 shot groups at 100 yards have measured close to 1 inch with a clean barrel, placing this rifle near 1 MOA, a figure that rivals bolt-action rifles costing considerably more. That semi-automatic action creates one real weakness. The magazine requires a firm, fully seated insertion, and a loose seat has caused feeding issues for some shooters, a problem bolt-action rifles simply do not share. Savage designed this rifle to give hunters and shooters rapid follow-up shots without sacrificing rimfire Magnum accuracy. The next rifle on this list keeps a bolt gun's rigid lockup, but changes the entire motion a shooter uses to run it. Number 2 on this list, the Browning T-Bolt Sporter. A bolt-action rifle that cycles almost as fast as a semi-automatic sounds like a contradiction, but the mechanism behind it solves that problem directly. Browning has built straight-pull rifles under the T-Bolt name since the 1960s, and the modern Sporter variant carries that lineage forward with a walnut stock and a free-floated barrel. This rifle targets shooters who want bolt-action rigidity without sacrificing the split-second speed a follow-up shot demands. Browning positions the T-Bolt as a rifle for both varmint hunters and competitive rimfire shooters chasing tight groups. Here is what most people miss about this gun. The straight-pull bolt separates the shooter's fore and aft motion from the actual locking process, using rotating lugs inside the bolt body that engage the receiver independently of how the shooter pulls the handle. This detail is the specific reason a shooter can run the T-Bolt nearly as fast as a semi-automatic while still keeping the rigid locked breech a true bolt action provides. This rifle chambers 2.2 Winchester Magnum rimfire through a 22-inch barrel and holds 10 rounds in a double helix rotary magazine. The Browning T-Bolt Sporter weighs 4.9 pounds, nearly 2 pounds lighter than the Ruger American Rimfire target covered earlier in this list. 5-shot groups with 40-grain ammunition have measured between 0.9 and 1.2 inches at 100 yards, placing this rifle at roughly 1 MOA despite its lighter Sporter profile. That precision comes at a real cost. This rifle carries the highest price tag among the bolt and lever guns on this list, and shooters on a tighter budget will find the Ruger delivers comparable accuracy for considerably less money. Browning designed this rifle for shooters who refuse to choose between bolt-action precision and rapid-fire capability. The next rifle on this list was never built to compete with hunting rifles at all. You have waited long enough. Here it is. Number 1 on this list, the Vudoo Gunworks Ravage. This rifle was never designed to compete with hunting guns. It was built to compete with rifles that cost twice as much. Vudoo Gunworks builds the Ravage as a custom match rifle, assembled by hand in the United States, rather than mass-produced on a standard line. The company constructs each rifle around a 2-lug bolt system originally developed for their competition-focused actions, a lineage rooted in NRL 22 and PRS Rimfire competition, rather than hunting camps or gun stores. Vudoo built this platform for shooters who treat a rimfire rifle the same way a bench rest shooter treats a centerfire precision rig, chasing fractions of an inch rather than field practicality. Here is the engineering decision that changed everything. Vudoo bonds the barreled action into the stock using a match-grade bedding system that eliminates nearly all of the microscopic movement responsible for group dispersion in standard sporting rifles, and pairs that bedding with an adjustable trigger capable of breaking under 1 pound of pull weight. This combination is the specific reason competitive rimfire shooters treat this rifle as a benchmark rather than an option among many. The bedding removes variables one at a time until barrel harmonics become the only meaningful factor left in play. This rifle chambers 2.2 Winchester Magnum rimfire through an 18-inch fluted barrel and holds 10 rounds in a specialized rotary magazine. The Vudoo Ravage weighs 7.5 pounds, roughly 2.5 pounds heavier than the Browning T-Bolt Sporter covered earlier in this list, and carries a price near $3,230, more than 5 times the cost of the Ruger American Rimfire target. 5-shot groups at 50 yards have measured as tight as 0.335 inches, placing this rifle at roughly 0.33 MOA, a figure that leaves every bolt gun on this list well behind it. 5 very different rifles. 5 very different engineering answers to the same question. How do you make a rimfire cartridge shoot smaller groups? Which mechanism surprised you the most? The straight pull lockup, the delayed blowback system, or the match-grade bedding on the Ravage? Leave your answer in the comments below. Subscribe for more documentary-style breakdowns built on verified historical records, engineering research, manufacturing history, and documented technological development.